Our final for Intro to Art, you will be critiquing a work of art. The requirements is that your critique is typed and it needs to be 2 pages. You will be following the format of critique that we used for the photorealism critique earlier in the semester. The only thing that we're going to add is that you'll need to add in a little bit of research for this critique underneath the interpretation. So if you remember the 4 steps for the art critique and art criticism, 1 is description, 2 is analysis, analyzing what you see, 3 is interpreting what you see and how what you see means. And in the interpretation, we're going to add some research as well. And then 4 will be your personal judgment of the piece. Do you like it? Do you not like it? And of course, when you're judging, you have to say why. What is the piece communicating to you? What is it not communicating to you? I'll give you a hint that the easiest thing to do is going to be choose something you're interested in. There'll be a list of 10 or so artworks to choose from for the final critique. And if I were you, I would choose one that you are interested in. So here is a sample critique. This is the painting American Gothic by Grant Wood. And if we look over here in Wikipedia, this Wikipedia will be a okay site for you to use for your research. Grant Wood painted American Gothic. This is a very iconic painting. If in a second I'll Google it on Firefox and we'll be able to see a bunch of different interpretations of this painting. So let's just start off with the painting. The first step is going to be judgment. And I'm going to do this verbally, but you of course will do it in a written format. So I'm just going to describe what I see, describe and write down everything that I see. And I'm going to get very detailed. So I see 2 people, and they're standing in front of a house. The man is dressed in simple farmer clothing, although it does look like he has a suit jacket on. And he also has a pitchfork. And the woman who is standing behind him has a simple pattern apron on and a nice dress underneath with a pin at her neck. I think that possibly the apron is suggesting that she's been doing housework, so she's covering up her clothing. Behind the couple is a farmhouse, and the reason why American Gothic is called American Gothic is because the architecture style of the house is Gothic style. Very simple, almost cartoonish trees behind, very perfectly round. The house is painted. It looks like it's not weathered or anything like that. It looks like it's kept in good shape. The roof looks pretty good. And over in the right-hand corner, we can see a nice red barn. The man is wearing glasses and is bald, which is maybe suggesting that he's older, and the woman is older as well. So that's describing the house and describing what we see. Using the description, I can tell this is a painting about 2 people who have a farmhouse and a red barn possibly behind it. Now we're going to move on to how the elements of art and how the principles of design are used. You can look those up online if you don't have them memorized already. Color, let's start with color. The color is used really simply. It's very realistic, light colors. It's not bold or crazy or suggestive, but it's not completely subdued. It's a pretty realistic use of color. The lines are very simple. There aren't a lot of chaotic lines going on. We see a lot of straight lines. The patterns that we see created by the lines would be on the smock and maybe in the curtains behind. The one pop of color that I do see that catches my eye is the shades or the trim, I think it might be, on the middle left-hand side of the window. Space is used pretty well. The space is pretty much filled up in the composition. The only thing that is a little bit blank is the perfectly clear sky. The value is pretty realistic. It's not photorealistic, but the values in the skin and the values of the clothing suggest a realistic interpretation of what the artist sees. And then obviously the value is creating form, and the form is pretty realistic as well. There's not a lot of crazy rhythm going on. It's a very simple rhythm. We can kind of see an up and a down toward of motion. Same on the heads, up and down. It's not grabbing my eye all around the page. My eye's not erratically going all over the page. There's not a lot of movement. It's a very still day. You'd think it might be a perfect day outside. So there's not a lot of movement. The emphasis might be on the two people in the house, because the two people in the house basically take up the whole painting. And the balance, the painting is pretty well balanced. The only thing that's throwing it off a little bit is that the height difference of the two people. But the house seems to be smack dab in the middle, and the people are pretty evenly spaced. So it has a nice sense of balance. This painting, when I move on to the interpretation of it, I'm guessing that this painting is of a married couple who owns a farmland. Knowing more about this painting, it's actually, I know that it comes out of the regionalism movement, and so what the regionalism art movement stood for was the perfect life. It was pretty prominent in the northwest of the country, also New England, and really tried to encapsulate what a perfect life would be. It had a lot to do with nature and farmland and farming. It was an artist's interpretation of a simple, good life and what the perfect life would be. So this is a regionalism painting, and I know a little bit more about this painting in that this is actually not a married couple. This happens to be a house that Grant Wood found one day and sketched on the back of an envelope when he was out driving. And then the models are his dentist and his sister are modeling for the painting. So it isn't a married couple. It's very different. The reality of this painting and how Grant Wood put it together is completely different from what we would expect that it represents. But really what it's supposed to represent is a simple life on the farm, which at the time, through the regionalism movement, was kind of envied by artists and envied by a certain type of people. So my interpretation, knowing what Grant Wood is going for and how he used all these elements to put it together as a statement, is that this is Grant Wood's interpretation of what the perfect life would be. A farmhouse and a man and a wife. So now I would move on to the last step, which is going to be the judgment step. And I happen to really like this painting. I think it's a really great piece of Americana art, and it really represents what it is to live in America, and what it is to maybe live in New England on a farm, or live in the Midwest on a farm. I really appreciate what it stands for: a nice, simple life, hardworking people who work hard to provide for themselves. If I scroll down, actually, I just want to see I want to show you guys a couple of the changes or the parodies that they did. So Homer and Marge, kind of funny one. Piggy and Kermit was kind of funny. So this is actually quite an important painting in American art history and in American history as well, the zombie one, and it's been parodied a lot. So hopefully you'll remember this painting, and whenever you see the painting itself or a parody of the painting, you will kind of think about what you know about the painting.